NFL Inside Blitz Wild Card Edition. I am here with Ron from Ron A Sports and Ted from Ted Sobel Sports. And I'm Chris. What's going on, guys?
Well, I'm still surviving the LA fires, which is a real good thing. It's unbelievable what's happened here. But we're going to talk football and take our minds off of reality here for the next hour or so. I want to bring up real quick, because it just happened, that the Raiders have made a change and they fired their GM, Tom Telesco. I want to get your thoughts on how that affects what's going on over there. It's the Al Davis effect is still there, by the way. Al's still hanging out. It's the ghost. It's his son. I've told you, the people in the NFL have said to me personally, privately, years back, they do not want Al Davis's son to own this team. That's part of the reason they're not in LA. The gang factor is another one, but it's totally mismanaged. They will now be paying 4 head coaches going into next season, and they have no idea what they're doing. Ron, I know you're an old Raiders fan going back to the Stabler days.
Yeah. Well, it's a shame that they keep misfiring and stuff. And I understand the criticism with Al Davis and whatever. More his son. His son was never football savvy. Al was always football savvy.
Yeah,
but his son is not. They've misfired a number of times. I did write an article earlier this week that I sent to a few people or whatever, understanding that I was there available for the job. I know they have Tom Telesco. So this might be my last show because negotiations are underway. They saw my article. Tom was fired. You know, if I have to take over as GM, I'll do it.
Wait a minute. There's a complaint from Chris because he doesn't want you as a neighbor to live there. So we need to talk.
Oh, I have to move there.
No, that would be pretty good, actually.
Yeah, can you do it virtually?
Yeah, the Raiders may have more on-field football needs than any team in the NFL. That's a story for another day. But basically, they're set at tight end, and they're set at one edge rusher position, and that's about it.
Yep. Okay, so congrats to the wonderful top seed who gets a bye this week, the Detroit Lions. How about those boys? How about what they did in their final game against Minnesota with a defense that we already know can be Swiss cheese, but they were pretty solid that day and when they needed to be. What do you think, Chris?
Well, it was remarkable how they were able to really have the success that they had, but you know, the refs let them play a little bit more physically than I think other refs would have let them play, and it went both ways. So I think it was fair. Yeah, because I think it was a little tough on the Minnesota receivers. I mean, you had a 5'7" or 5'8" guy covering Jefferson one-on-one successfully. So Jefferson wasn't happy about it after the game, and frankly, it did seem like there could have been some calls, but there were some no calls on the other direction too. So, you know, if you're going to call it the same way both ways, I don't have a problem with it.
Right. And thank you, Bertie. All is good. I appreciate the comment there. And the Chiefs get a bye too. And boy, they need it because they were just awful in the last game, even though they play with everybody who will be working at 7-Eleven next week.
Yeah. This was brought up a couple weeks ago. I brought it up, and I think other people are taking note of this. The Chiefs have to be upgraded with their power rating by 1 point, I feel. Wow. And I said that about 3 or 4 weeks ago, because if you look at their wide receiver group to where it was last year and where it was at the beginning of this year, they now have veterans in the lineup there. They have guys who actually catch passes and they don't drop passes, guys that Mahomes could trust. And now he's had 24 extra days, or he will have, to deal with the Hopkins and the Brown that they signed at the beginning of the year, but he's played maybe 2 games, right, and what they already have. So this is a different team now, and they go into the playoffs. I mean, they got lucky last year because they weren't that good a team, but they got that Week 18 bye. This week is different, Chris and Ted, because 6 teams essentially had a week 18 bye and didn't have to play their teams. I mean, Houston played for 1 quarter. Buffalo played for 1 snap. Green Bay took out their quarterback. Philadelphia rested just about everybody. We know Kansas City didn't have to play. That's 5 of the 6 that I charted. This is a different year. Load management. There's a lot of rested teams going into this year's playoffs.
Yeah. And the last thing on Detroit, it looks like they're going to get Montgomery back too, right? And Jahmyr Gibbs is like an all-world guy right now. He looks unstoppable. So it's going to be a fascinating next few weeks for sure.
Well, I remember explaining to people there was a method to the madness of that draft as they were being ridiculed. So
you mean like too many running backs?
They picked out the exact guys that they wanted.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't care if they were overdrafting them by the polls, so to speak.
Well, they only overdrafted Gibbs because they got blindsided by Witherspoon, and that Cris set them back 2 years in their pass defense because Witherspoon was the guy they targeted, and nobody knew that Seattle was going to take him. So that was just one of those situations, and they still wanted Gibbs because you want diversity in your backfield. So the Lions stuck to their plan, and they didn't care that they were overdrafting him. They had no intention of drafting him that high. It's just the way the draft works.
Yep. And thank you to Philip for his comments. And I agree with you. This is the only podcast I listen to as well. So wait a minute. I can take my earplugs out. No, that's another story. We got a doubleheader on Saturday, guys. And the Chargers are at Houston. It's really funny. Here in LA, we're really, hardly anybody cares about the Chargers. It's fascinating to hear even people on the air saying, I wonder if the Chargers have a chance this week. Hey, idiots, they're favorites. What do you mean, do they have a chance this week? I hear that like all the time. Anyway, the Bolts, off of their 5-12 season last year, slightly different story from a coaching standpoint. The entire organization is bought in to Harbaugh, and that's everything right now.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts?
You want to go first, Cris?
Sorry to wake you.
Usually I speak when I just find the game. It's going to be an interesting game. I mean, if the thing about it is I really like Houston in a teaser +10. I don't think the Chargers can get separation on them, but
totally agree with you.
I don't think anybody is in a hurry to lay 3 with the Chargers. But when you've got the better quarterback, or you've got a veteran quarterback, you've got the better coach. That goes a long way. So, they haven't been able to protect Stroud this season. That's a big concern, and it's going to be even harder on this game for him. So, you have coaches on the Chargers side of the ball that are familiar with Stroud from being with the team the previous year.
Yeah.
You've got injuries, but I still think Houston has enough. I saw the game should be won, so it's not a whole lot of value, but I have to side with the Houston.
What do you think, Ron, in that from the value standpoint?
Yeah, I have the game line about the same as Cris, and I agree with Chris's comments. But I also want to play the point counterpoint for Houston's side when we talk about the better coach, better quarterback and stuff, because Houston's no slouch in some of these areas either. Their pass defense is definitely better than the Chargers' pass defense, which creates that intriguing development is what can Justin Herbert, who's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, do? Sometimes you see good quarterbacks. It doesn't matter what pass defense you throw at them. They're still going to have success. But Houston is number 1 or number 2 in terms of limiting accuracy of other teams' quarterbacks. So that's one matchup. You've got 2 established running backs, Mixon, and you have Dobbins. And they're going to try to be force-fed, but their yards per carry way down from their career averages. They're not going to move the chains. It essentially comes down to, can they get the tough 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2 yards, especially in Harbaugh's case, because he'd rather, play physical, even though the team has morphed into more of a passing team. They still want to get the tough yards on 3rd and 2 and stuff like that. But these running backs are not going to have career days here. They're going to hold on to the football. Mixon's going to be used in the pass game, but he's not going to most likely break big gains and stuff like that. It's really going to come down to the passing game, the passing defense, pass protection for Houston, definitely. And one other thing is that you've got, I'm trying to think where the other matchup is here. I mean, you have McConkey on the Charger side, great rookie season, but you have more weapons, I think, on Houston's side, to be honest.
Absolutely. And it's funny too, because how many of you actually believe that Quentin Johnston is going to be the guy like he was last week? That was a once in a lifetime game for him, and he didn't drop any too, which is really incredible. And my feeling is double-digit targets for McConkey in this game, no doubt. Now, whether he's open or not is a whole different story. Play the overs on whatever his numbers are in this game.
Okay, you heard it first from Ted in terms of that. So,
I had one play last week. I said, you got to go with Arizona in the game. Got to go with them.
Well,
confidence.
I have no problem with that because that was that was my huge play on a day that I'm not going to forget. But that's a different story. We're on to this week. And yeah, I think you're right in terms of McConkey getting a lot of action there. But Houston knows that too.
Yeah, of course. But still, you got to go to your best guy, and they don't have a lot of guys when it comes to targets. So I would say McConkey, run some routes, baby.
I don't see this game going over. This seems to be a low-scoring game to me, doesn't it?
Yeah, but you're already at 42.5-ish.
Yeah,
right,
there's it came down. There are two thoughts to this.
It did.
Number one, it's winner take all. So if a team gets behind, they're going to throw anything and everything. So games can get a little crazy at the end. I think there'll be a feeling out process. And I think that could affect first quarter, first half kind of totals and stuff. So there could be a little feeling out process. And number two, this is something Cris and I mentioned. I mentioned briefly on Tuesday, but it bears repeating. Refs want to see the game. Everybody, all the fans want playoff games to be played kind of like the Detroit-Minnesota game was played. Let the players play.
Right.
So you're going to see fewer calls, which might mean fewer pass interference. You never know. If it's egregious, they're going to call it. But offensive holding, that's one of the things that might be let go a little bit.
Okay, so Cris already gave us his thoughts on the spread. Ron, are you only looking at the dog, or you have no interest?
No, I took Houston +3 because it's a toss-up game. It's a 50-50 game. And in a 50-50 game, you go with the dog.
Exactly.
If it loses, it loses. In my opinion, I will win the bet. At Pick'em, I would win 50% of the time. So what happens if the line is 3? How much more will I win? Well, I think it's going to be more than 52.38, which is the break-even number.
And are you factoring that games can't tie in the playoffs?
As far as Birdie's question on Herbert, yes, he can have an impact in the run game. No, he doesn't want to. He looked really good in the last game. And I mentioned, I think last week about, he's still dealing. And he mentioned to me 2 weeks ago about that foot injury that it's lingering and it's not going away until the season's over. So he doesn't want to run if he doesn't have to. But they do have Dobbins back. So as long as he's healthy, go with it, baby.
Yeah, one comment on that, because Birdie makes a good point. All quarterbacks will do what it takes to win the game. Exactly. Josh Allen will run more than he did during the regular season because there's not necessarily going to be 35-10 blowouts and he's not under load management and stuff like that. Lamar Jackson has already stated that he'll run more. Herbert will run if he needs to run. There's no problem with that.
Yep.
Yeah, but will Phillip Rivers do a quarterback sneak?
Never. That won't happen. Good recollection there too.
All right, let's move on to the next game, which I'll be watching with a thermal jacket on. Pittsburgh at Baltimore, 31 degrees in Maryland for the game. No wind factor for any of the games, apparently, this weekend, so that's a good thing. The spread is still 9.5, guys.
Soft 10.
Oops, I'm on first halves. Yeah, it's a soft 10, strong 9.5.
Okay, so no Zay Flowers. How does that affect the game to you?
First of all, 31 degrees is a blessing. My daughter has said that it hasn't reached 30 the last few days, so it must be a warming trend there.
Yeah, when I lived in Madison, Wisconsin, by the way, it didn't reach 30 for 3 months, so screw all of you. Go ahead.
Well, it's a little cold there. Zay Flowers is a big loss because he's that slant guy that you can have underneath. Fantastic hands out of Boston College, and he's able to do a lot of different things, diversify the offense. Todd Monken, if this is one of his last few games in Baltimore, because I think he's head coaching material, I think he's going to look at Pittsburgh the same way they always look at Pittsburgh. These guys have played 1 billion times, so they've done it with Zay Flowers. Harbaugh and Tomlin have squared off without Zay Flowers. So the only big addition here is that you have Travis Henry as the closer. And that's something that Pittsburgh hasn't faced, facing Baltimore in the past. And that's a fourth quarter worry for Pittsburgh.
How much does the fact that the Ravens beat them just a few weeks ago come into play at all?
Cris, go first.
Well, Pittsburgh lost Porter early in that game. That made it difficult on them. That Wilson didn't look good in that game either. And didn't they play without Pickens?
Yes, they played without Pickens. Correct.
So I mean, you're talking about a big difference in the lineup there. I don't think Flowers was in the lineup for Baltimore though either at that point, right?
Flowers went 5 for 100 against in that game. 2 catches in the 18-16 game that Pittsburgh won very early in the year. Tight end Andrews, he's rounding into form. He's going to be actually tight ends are going to be featured. There's no question. Bless you on both sides of the ball, but. You're going to see Likely and Andrews be a major part of the program. I mean, Andrews is an extremely reliable pass catcher, as you saw last week.
Right.
What do you put the odds that one of these two coaches gets fired?
After the game?
Yeah.
1 billion to 1.
You don't think if Harbaugh lost this game that he wouldn't be on the teeter-totter there?
I don't think so.
Not unless Mark Davis buys the team.
And they say the Pittsburgh upper brass are too scared to even discuss it about Tomlin. So,
yeah, I mean, those are issues for another day. But Pittsburgh needs to participate in free agency, and they just don't. Pittsburgh and Green Bay have been 2 of the major bystanders, and these teams who do a good job in navigating how they draft. They have a system in place in both places, but they're not supplementing it with free agency. And Pittsburgh is so void of wide receivers right now. If you ask me how, obviously Pittsburgh didn't close well, but we knew their schedule was tough. But if you ask me, is it a success that Pittsburgh made the playoffs with their roster this year? I'd say yes.
Okay. And you guys make the spread as it is, because if you look at this game, and if you came from another planet, but you knew the history, you say, wait a minute, this is just another AFC North game. How the hell could one team be a 10-point favorite over the other when in a playoff game? In that respect, that's asking a lot.
I don't know what Cris' numbers say, but my numbers are spot on for this game. The power rating is what it is. Baltimore is the number 1 team. I would challenge anybody who does power ratings to have a different number 1 team in power ratings at this point. Baltimore has earned the number 1 spot.
Okay. Are anything to say from a betting standpoint, boys?
Yeah, I don't have Baltimore number 1.
Uh-oh. Who do you have?
The Raiders.
We can discuss that later.
Okay. You'll have to remind me about that. I'm surprised at that.
All right.
I don't know. It just feels like a lot of points. I just can't wash the bad vision of Russell Wilson's end game last week and Tomlin's end game. But then again, you sit there and you look at Harbaugh on the other side, and they should be equally matched up in foul-ups and in-game strategy play.
Well, there's good and bad news in this game. The good news is that George Pickens is in as opposed to the last time they played. The bad news is he's going to make the huddle really lousy. That guy's got some issues. I'm not a fan, and he is way too much of a prima donna for me. And he's still a kid, so no excuse.
He got humbled last week though, because he's the one who cost them.
Yeah, well, we'll see. He got humbled on paper. We'll see if it's in reality. I don't know if that's even possible. He'll be humbled in the real world. Let's go to Sunday. Triple header. Sunday. Denver at Buffalo. 24 degrees and a slight chance of snow. Just the way we love it in beautiful Buffalo this time of the year. So anyway, everybody wear your shorts and your tank tops to that game. Your thoughts on the Bills and where they stand at this stage? I mean, it's the Josh Allen show and a bunch of other guys, or is it?
This is a really difficult game because the Bills' offense matches up. Even though the Denver defense is as good as it is, it just seems like the Buffalo offense can actually have success with it. And I don't think the Bills are going to go anywhere because I think, Ron, you agree, their defense is just atrocious.
We've been talking about that for months.
Do you remember a Super Bowl participant that had this poor of a defense make it to a Super Bowl?
The closest I could come would be the Bears the year that Peyton Manning beat them. And the Bears returned that opening kickoff for a touchdown and then weren't seen after that. That's the closest. The Atlanta Falcons, the year that they had the big 28-3 lead, that was going to be, as far as making the Super Bowl, there were other teams with that profile, but the Atlanta Falcons would have been the worst team ever defensively to win the Super Bowl had they held on to that lead. The game has changed a little bit, and you can have weaker defenses, but Buffalo's defense doesn't fit the profile.
Yeah, that's why Josh Allen should be the MVP, whatever Lamar Jackson's numbers are. That's exactly the reason. Because there's
so many great players this year, on these teams.
Right.
But what Josh Allen did that still is underappreciated is he stopped turning the ball over.
Well, yeah.
He completely
there's the whole
fumbles, the interceptions, they completely stopped. And it's amazing how well an offense works in this day and age when you don't turn the ball over.
It really is amazing.
in this day and age, it's 3.75 points for every turnover that you.
Well, and he doesn't get sacked either.
That's true too, and that's the beauty of this game, as we discussed 2 days ago. You discussed probably yesterday. Denver is number one at sacking opponents, and Buffalo doesn't allow any sacks.
Yeah, but Denver coming off a blowout shutout against the number one team number two team in the AFC. That, of course, nobody played, but that's another story.
Yeah, they found a way to make Mahomes look invisible out there.
Yes, we couldn't even find him on the sideline.
Yeah.
Anyway, thoughts on Von Miller going against his old team here, and is this the spread that you guys made?
Well, he didn't give them any bulletin board material. He sent his regards to Bronco Nation, which was nice. My concern with Denver is that their defense is right up there, but every single decent team that they faced, they gave up a hell of a lot of points.
Yeah, I think Denver's going to have to do their part offensively in this game. The moment won't be too big for Bo Nix with 1 million starts, important starts in college, not just starts for a team that did a minor league team. I mean, he went to all kinds of important games in the Pac-12 and beyond, and he played in the SEC before that. So the moment's not too big, and the moment's not too big for Sean Payton either, because he's been there and he's creative and so on. The moment for the Denver defense, like Cris said, that's a tough one because profiling this game, Denver fits a very strong profile that they're going to be competitive in this game. But the question is, Buffalo, with kind of an extra week of rest off a bye week, is it going to be too much? And we don't know that until we start seeing what happens on the field.
I tend to get a feel this time of the year that nobody is a rookie anymore, so I don't get caught up in that stuff. Even though it's his first playoff game, you never know how that's going to affect anybody. But I'm not worried about him like making mistakes because he's a rookie. I'm just worried about him because they're still a growing offense.
Well, Ron, go ahead, Ron.
No, I said if they lose, let's not blame it on that he's a rookie. Let's just blame it on that they were the second best team.
Exactly. Is any action thoughts on this game, guys?
Well, Cris was going to make a point, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about it yesterday because Ron had brought up on Tuesday. He's had 78 starts between college and pro. I mean, it's ridiculous. He's got, and these kids nowadays, they're playing extra games because the schedules are longer. They had COVID years where you got extra eligibility. You've got the money issues. You've got these guys are coming into the league more prepared than ever. You look at the 5 quarterbacks that started this year. Is there a loser? There isn't. So when you go 5 for 5 in quarterbacks, I think you have to throw out the book on. I think these guys come into the league with more ice in their veins than quarterbacks of the past, and I think they're getting better coaching and assistance along the way, or else they wouldn't be in the playoffs. I mean, Caleb didn't get the proper coaching or assistance, and he waffled, even though he did have some good statistics.
Yeah, well, I did get you Bo Nix on this show a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about the rookie wall, remember? Mm-hmm. And he basically said, I'm good. There's no rookie wall. So whatever. That you got to take him for his word.
Yeah, there's a diversity of talent on Denver. No real superstars other than Cortland Sutton, but they're not afraid to involve everybody in the offense, and they're going to have to. The spread is close enough. I wouldn't have made Buffalo as high, but it's close enough. It's just what you think is going to happen on the field.
Yeah, and what do you think is going to happen on the field for the most part?
For the most part, I'm going to use the historical profile and think that Denver has a chance to be competitive.
Okay.
I think the key is you don't have Buffalo in a lot of one-score games, and I think Buffalo's going to come into this game rested and pretty freewheeling and loose. Yeah. But I think the sphincter's going to tighten up a little bit if there's some pressure on them later on in the game, and if Denver's able to get out to a lead, keep it close. Let's see how they act in those situations.
Yeah, I think the Bills Mafia is worth a couple of points too, by the way, in this game.
Yeah.
Against a first-time starter in the playoffs. All right, let's go to
about bumping. Well, we talked about bumping home field advantage up about 0.5 point in the playoffs.
Okay, but I mean specifically in Buffalo.
Still 0.5 point.
Okay. I don't think it's 0.5 point in Houston.
Well, I'm not saying home field is 0.5 point. I'm saying home field extra 0.5 point.
Gotcha. All right, Green Bay at Philadelphia. I'm wearing a shirt here with the greatest old school football logo that exists. The Packers, 4.5 point dogs on the road, 36 degrees at Philadelphia coming up. Christian Watson is done for the year. That was a awful injury to watch where he wasn't even touched and his knee buckled on him. Anyway, we got some health concerns for both sides. Jalen Hurts, I guess he's going to play, but, is he rusty? He hasn't done anything for 3 weeks, right? Thoughts on that?
Well, we went through this 2 years ago. He didn't play the last 3 weeks of the year. So
And
they went to the Super Bowl.
okay, I mean it happens. I mean
Well, somebody's betting Philadelphia now. It's bounced up to 5 in a bunch of spots all of a sudden.
Wow, interesting. Okay, still about 45-ish on the OU.
45 and a half.
Okay.
And a real surprise, Joel Embiid is going to be out.
Hey, I don't know. He could have blocked a couple of field goals. Maybe that's too bad.
Yeah, that would help.
Anyway, what injury concerns are there in this game that you think might affect things?
Well, Jordan Love, of course.
Yeah, well, but the question is he fine?
Well, if the line's creeping up, we have to be aware that he may not be fine.
Okay. Got that elbow thing. It was like a sort of a stinger, a funny bone that they thought at the time. I haven't heard anything specific on it. Have you?
No, but LaFleur is known for, BSing the injury issues.
Okay. Let's
in this particular game, if he doesn't play, it's massive. Malik Willis under the tutelage of Green Bay has performed much better than he would if he stayed in the Tennessee organization. But you do not want him facing the Eagles defense.
Right. And does Jalen Hurts play a little more conservative because coming off the concussion, you don't want to take any stupid chances?
3 weeks have passed.
Well, I know. It's his head.
Well, the quarterbacks in that situation tend to be a little fuzzy. They don't jump into the game at full throttle. But their game plan is obviously they're going to want to run the ball down their throats anyway. But I like Greg Cosell predicted that they're going to take a shot with either predicted or suggested, or wouldn't be surprised if they took a shot with Brown and some high, some long shot type pass, open it up a little bit early on. He said that might be on their game plan.
I'm wondering what Ron feels about the Philly run D and how that will affect how they can slow down Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. That's a great matchup. Let me finish up on the Brown. Hurts has been known to take deep shots in games, so I agree completely with that comment. And this is another situation. You got Henry going to his team in Baltimore. You've got Barkley trying to be the closer in this game, and Cris is right. They're going to run it down their throat. The interesting matchup is exactly that: Jacobs versus a Philly run D that nobody wants to run against. 24.5 average number of carries against Philly because everybody abandons the run. But Josh Jacobs' history is 20 plus runs in a game per average when they're competitive, unless they're way behind.
Right.
So this chess match is going to have to be Green Bay saying, we're going to test that run defense because we have a back who can win against that run defense. And
absolutely.
If that happens, it changes the dynamic. It is the matchup in this game.
Yep, absolutely. And if Jacobs has a great game, that's total positive there for the Packers. If they stop him, I think they stop the game. They win the game, Philly. So.
Yeah, weird wideouts right now for Green Bay. Watson's out, but Watson hasn't been that much of a factor except for on the deep throw. Right. Dobbs has been in and out of having good games. Jalen Reed, their number one receiver, has 17 catches in his last 7 games. He's kind of disappeared. Yeah. They need somebody to step up. They have a lot of young kids.
And they're not afraid to go to the tight end, too.
Right. And they have a good one in Kraft, and Musgrave is coming back to give them a second option if they want to go that route. But Philly's really stiffened up on the pass D. Green Bay needs to have a couple of these wide receivers to probably overachieve off recent performances.
Okay.
What Birdie raises a good point is how do you factor in that 31st strength of schedule for the Eagles?
This is a conversation we probably should have on a Tuesday because it warrants a longer response. But at this point, unless you're in the AFC South or the NFC South, I honestly haven't factored it in.
Okay. All right,
let's not forget what happened in the first round with both of these teams last year. It's Philadelphia really laid an egg, and Green Bay came out on fire, just pedal to the metal and just buried Dallas right out of the gate.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, Green Bay sort of matches up against Philly. I mean, I wouldn't downgrade that. It's just the teams are at different points right now. So it'll be interesting. I will tell you this. You talked about Philly. Philly's Achilles heel may be playing Tampa Bay, and if that matchup happens, it'll be interesting to talk about that because I thought Philly would extract revenge earlier this year, and they did nothing of the sort.
Okay, well, let's see if Jordan Love is part of the equation. If he's not, this could all be a waste of talk.
He's practicing today again, so he's a full participant.
Okay, so he'll be there. That's good to know. And speaking of Tampa Bay, that's the Sunday night game at home against the Commandos, as we love to call them. 3-point favorites of the Bucks. Still, I assume it's still solid 3. Is that right?
It is.
Okay. 50.5. A little on the cool side for Florida, 53 degrees, but that's cold for me. I don't know. A slight chance of rain in that game. Washington's lost 5 straight playoff games, but that's incredibly old news now because they're not the Redskins anymore, and the idiot owner is long gone. It's a whole new team. So go Jaden Daniels. Let's see what he's got in his first playoff game. I'm excited to watch this thing with Baker trying to do his thing on home field.
Yeah, a lot of interesting storylines in this particular game. Yep. I think I'll go off the radar a little and then defer to Cris to comment on the game. But this guy McMillan, the rookie McMillan, the wide receiver, he's thriving. He's catching 5 every game, and he's stretching the field. But the biggest stat I'll point out is that Tampa Bay had tied worst run offense in 2023 and still won their division. Yep. And then they faced a tougher schedule and more prime time and everything else this year, and they still won their division, barely, of course. But they did it with the 3rd best running offense. I mean, things really clicked. Tampa subtly improved in ways I didn't expect.
Yeah, well, it's something about Baker's leadership quality, though, right now. I mean, they just totally believe in him. And it's a really great story. If they continue here on a roll, they sort of limped a little bit into the postseason here, the way the last few weeks went. It wasn't as good as it was for the previous month, but they're finding a way.
Well, since the bye, they've been the number 1 team in my ratings, and they've been blitzing at a rate that is amazing, just very, very high blitz rate. But what's interesting is I believe Daniels is either the 2nd best quarterback against the blitz. And not only does he, not only is he able to get rid of the ball, but he's been able to make big plays, and alternatively, he's been able to run for big gains. So he could really hurt you. So it's going to be interesting to see if Bowles does as much blitzing as he's been doing.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of Bowles, let's give him some props here a little bit. Nobody talks about Todd Bowles, what he does over there.
You mean leaving Godwin into the lineup with no hope of winning and ruining?
Wait. I didn't say it was perfect, but bottom line is week to week, they're getting the job done, and he's a part of it and doesn't get a lot of credit. Okay, so
Clock management needs to be much, much better.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
That's the only problem with him.
Yeah, he's got a few issues. I'm just saying he's getting it done. Okay, and they're here, and we'll see what happens. But and I like the way he has evolved with his offense too, because he's not the offensive guru that they could use.
I like Tampa Bay. I like both of these teams. I consider both of them play on teams.
Yep.
And the funny thing about it is I think, you look at like the way Tampa Bay played last week, and then the week before they played great, and then the week before that they, what are you doing? And both of these teams are a little inconsistent. You don't know what you're going to get. So you could potentially see it has a wide range of results as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I think the wide open way of theming this is give me the overs in this game. I think it's just going to be it could be any kind of a final score. Is it still 50 or 50 and a half?
You can get a 49 and a half.
Okay, I'll take the overs in this game.
So my important matchup in this game is Baker Mayfield, who just does anything and everything to try to will his team into the game, versus Washington's vastly improved pass defense, which really snuck up on me a little bit. They'd allowed everything. I mean, we're talking well over 70% the first 5 games or so, and they've allowed 57% since then. So if they can force, and we know Baker turns the ball over, if Baker doesn't turn the ball over, Tampa's just got too much run pass balance in this game. But if they can force some turnovers out of Baker because they've been playing such good and improved pass defense, really that's the game for me. What does Washington's pass defense do against Baker Mayfield and what he has as weapons?
And does that mean that Jaden has to play out of his mind to get the most out of his team, though?
I don't know if he has to do that, but he's going to have to use his legs. He's going to have to use his arm. McLaurin sometimes disappears in games, and then they find him in spurts.
Yep.
I think they have to have more consistent play calling there. But I think Washington, like Tampa, wants to have run-pass balance. Move the chains, not do anything fantastic. Tampa's decent, not spectacular against the run. Like Cris said, I agree completely. There are so many different potential outcomes in this game.
Yep.
Yeah, and Russell, you can bet that at over 18 and a half like I just did.
You did? Okay.
Caesar's William Hill has 18 and a half.
Cris,
one danger is that if he kneels down at the end of the game, it subtracts yards.
Exactly. But Cris, you know how much we absolutely love when you tell us you're making plays while we're talking. It's like one of the greatest highlights of our show.
You should see us on Tuesdays.
Oh, is it more on Tuesday?
Sometimes we, because we're challenging each other and we come up with some sort of future play that we need to make.
I got to make this play now while it's on my mind, right? All right, let's go to the only game that matters, since that's the only game I'm going to.
No, we got to give Russell a kick in the nuts. I found a 17 and a half.
Wow.
Jesus.
Okay. Well, you're stealing points here. Anyway.
No, the cost average.
Yeah. Monday Night Football, Mini at the Rams, assuming, and we are assuming, that we don't have major fires again here over the weekend, because we're supposed to get strong winds on Saturday and Sunday. And if it gets real bad and fires flare up, that game could be moved to Arizona. The league has talked about it. They are prepared to do that. We're going to assume that's not going to happen. So the Rams will have actual home field advantage for one of their rare opportunities to have that. Thoughts on that game? I got a lot of sound coming up, guys, from last week, but the Vikings coming off that game, which was, okay, will the real Sam Darnold please stand up?
Yeah, so Sam Darnold has been trained, I personally think, no evidence of this, trained and coached to not make a mistake in the red zone. He made
Okay.
some earlier in the season, and then against Jacksonville, you saw all those field goals and stuff like that. And last week, against a very offensive team, you saw him not take chances. I think in winner take all, you're going to have to take a chance on Darnold right now. And you're going to have to say, hey, you've had some really good games. Now you're just going to have to throw caution to the wind. Red zone performance for Minnesota might decide this game.
Win us the damn game, Sam, for once, right?
Well, I figure he cost himself around $5 million a year with that Monday night performance.
And you thought you had a bad weekend.
I think that cost him between 15 and 20 million, depending on how long the contract he gets is.
Well, I don't. You know why? Because if he comes back and has a fantastic week this week, it'll be totally forgotten.
That's true.
So, well, let's talk about that, when they're done. We get caught up in this is like, week one, after week one, we're getting caught up in, oh, look what happened with these guys. Forget all that crap. It's one game, and it was disappointing, but he did have a lot of old Sam that didn't look very smooth at times, and give Detroit D some credit as well on that one. He missed open guys, though, okay? I mean, guys were very, very disappointing there in that game against Detroit.
I give Detroit credit for taking Jefferson out of the equation, and that's not going to happen the rest of the way. They will force balls to Jefferson. That was an error in judgment, one that I appreciated, but an error in judgment that I think won't be replicated. You win playoffs with your best players.
Right. Okay. Well, let's get some sound here. Guess who was named Special Teams Player of the Month today? Josh Carty, your favorite kicker, Ron, the guy you said is going to be the guy. And we asked Coach McVay his thoughts after Josh Carty set a couple of club rookie records. Let's hear on the coach.
He was awesome. I mean, you talk about just how pure he struck the football today. I thought the last field goal that we had to be able to go up 25-24 was an excellent hold by Ethan Evans and, really good time by Josh. But to hit, 2 longer 50-yard field goals the way that he did, I think he's peaking at the right time. He's just been so steady. I'm really proud of Josh, but not surprised just based on the things that go on behind the scenes and how he's just been so steady throughout this journey that we've been on.
There you go. That's Sean McVay as head coach. Now, I walked over to Josh Carty standing there all by himself, and he had just broken records, and I surprised him because he had no idea that he broke the team rookie records. And so I got a kick out of that. So I played that. All of a sudden, there were 15 guys standing behind me saying, oh, I got to get Josh Carty. No, I got him, baby. He's mine. Let's hear from Carty.
But I didn't know.
Yeah, you passed it today. Congratulations. First of all, Happy New Year, man.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
It's a heck of a way to start. So you needed 4 field goals, and you got that record.
Oh.
And you got 13 points, and you got that record. So how does that feel to move on top of all the rookies?
It feels pretty good. Yeah, this is news to me. Feels great. We wish we got the win for the boys, but good day, and then now the focus on playoffs.
Yeah, 5 straight wins, though, going in with starters. I mean, that's got to give you guys a ton of confidence, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we know no one really wants to play us, and we're excited. I mean, the 2 teams that are playing tonight, I mean, we beat one of them, and we took one in the overtime first game of the year when we were, starting 1-4. So we feel really good about ourselves, and, it's exciting. Also, the confidence builder, just to show my teammates that, hey, I can do it. I belong here. Show myself I belong here. I can do it. Thought I handled some adversity pretty well. I told Sean, pretty much like 5 games back in practice one week, I was like, just don't let me get started. And once I get started, then, there's really no looking back. And so I was happy to finish out the last, 5 games pretty strong. And then go into the next game when it really matters a lot, to our whole organization. Like, hey, let's do it. And then, feel good about it.
Probably had a little bit of confidence before week 17, though, or week 18, right? Going in. I mean, you've done enough this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a fun ride.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for next week. Definitely was a little up and down in the regular season so far. Absolutely. attribute to 17 game season first of all, but also a great offense and defense that really emphasizes the importance of field goals. You don't have a good defense, you're not trying a lot of field goals, and if you don't get into field goal range, you're not trying a lot of field goals. So just thankful to have the opportunities. And I've dealt with a bunch of different things, as any rookie does, as any player does, and just to adapt. Make changes, kind of just, it's a little cliche, but just figure out what works and then try and stick with it and, give myself the best chance at success.
Enjoy it, man. Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
All right, there's Josh Carty of the Rams, the kicker, and I got to know him a little bit because Ron said, you got to watch this guy. Okay, so week 1 we got him on this show, and now week 18 we got him on the show. And, boy, he's improved a lot, too, by the way, talking. He's opened up a lot. Remember, he didn't say a lot at the beginning. So he's not a rookie anymore either, Ron.
No. Good, confident talk there. He feels part of the team.
Absolutely. Let's hear from Coach McVay when I asked him about being ready for the playoffs. And remember, this was also after their loss to Seattle. And that night, they didn't know they're going to be playing Minnesota or Detroit. Coach, whoever you play, you still got going in with a 5-game winning streak with your starters, right? So there's a huge confidence there.
Yeah.
But is there anything specific, 1 or 2 things that you really want to gear up for whoever you play?
I think it depends. Here's the biggest thing. I want to see us, the best part about this and why people love it is it's whoever plays the best in that window of time you're allotted. And let's control the things that we can control. There's certain things that we can't. The bounce of the ball, some of the decisions that maybe officials make. But we're going to put our focus and concentration on everything that we can control. And if we put it together with some of the guys we have at the right spots and the way that this team is capable of playing, you tell me it's a 3.5-hour window where we get a chance to go compete. I'm saying I'll take it and let's go swing. Enjoy the opportunity. Let's go compete to the best of our ability. Let's continue to take steps that are in the right direction. And you get into the dance, it's a single elimination tournament. We're going to go swing. We're going to shoot our shot. We're not going to be afraid to do anything other than go for it.
There you go. That's Rams head coach Sean McVay, which Jimmy Garopolo told me a few minutes later. I had to get Jimmy on this because he's all excited about McVay and his motivational thoughts. So that's a quick thought from Jimmy G.
Sean's energy, it trickles down. It really starts with him and ends with him. When we take his message to the field, I think good results happen.
Do you have a feel that your guys are a little under the radar, though, right now, and that could be a positive?
Yeah, call it what you want, under the radar, whatever. We got some dogs on this team, man. I know we're going to show up next week ready to roll.
There you go. Just a quick few thoughts from Jimmy Garopolo. Then I ran over to K.Williams, who did not play. With every key starter on offense were not dressed in that game against Seattle. And Williams talked about the rest and getting ready for the real season.
How excited are you for next week?
I'm excited, I was itching today to go out there and play, but I knew my time was coming this upcoming weekend and next weekend. But I'm excited, being able to go back out there and play football and play in real football. Like, this is really when it matters, playing up in the playoffs. Everything is just upped, and so I feel like I'm super excited for what's to come.
As a running back, how contagious is it for you to have that week off and not having the hits?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it allows my body to, recover, rejuvenate, and to be ready for this upcoming week. But no matter what it was, I was going to be ready for, the playoffs.
You guys have had 5 straight wins with starters, so there's got to be a ton of confidence in this room going into the postseason, right?
Yeah, that's what it's all about. I feel like that confidence has been brewing for a long time now to get us where we're at. And, honestly, there's a belief. I don't even know if it's a confidence, a belief that we're going to go out there and do what we do and do it to the max, to the best of our ability.
Are you guys sort of under the radar, though, at this stage? Because everybody's talking about everybody else.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't really, tune into what everybody's saying and whatnot, but I know what the Rams are capable of, and I know that in this locker room we got a great group of guys who are willing to go out there and come out with wins over and over again.
Yeah, your kicker just said nobody wants to play us.
Literally,
right?
It sucks for them who has to play us for sure, because we just got a mentality that it's us versus the world, and we don't really see who's in front of us. We just know that what we have to do and the work that we have to do as a team.
Thanks. All right, so there you go with K.Williams, who's a really important part of this game, no doubt about it. And And then I talked to Rams cornerback Kobe Durant after that final regular season loss, and he's an interesting guy. And that defensive backfield better be ready in this baby.
Both got high-power offense. Great guys at receivers. Both got great quarterbacks. I'm excited to watch them play tonight. Them to go at it. And may the best man wins. Whoever comes to the Rams house, they got to see us. So just going into this playoff game, knowing that we got a whole DB room that's ready to go.
Is there a feel of you're under the radar kind of a team right at this stage? Because everybody's talking about so many other clubs,
I really don't be paying attention to what's going on in the media.
It's not just the media; it's everywhere.
Yeah, I don't pay attention to it. Okay. I have my mind focused on whoever the next opponent is, and that's how I attack each and every day.
Is that sort of a way of being positive, though, saying, "Hey, let everybody forget about us"?
Yeah, for sure. We don't have to be in the headlines. Whoever we play, it'll show there. So,
yeah. Thanks, man. You want to be in the headlines in a month?
Yeah.
I love it. He said, "Yeah, Super Bowl. I want to get in the headlines for that." I got one more quick one. I walked over to Stetson Bennet. Okay, yes, he's the third string quarterback on this team, but I want to get everybody a feel for what it's like. I surprised him a little bit, and he finally finished his first complete year in the NFL. Just a little one-on-one with Bennet. Hey, Stetson, can I get you real quick? Yeah. Thanks, man. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I'm curious. I watched through the binoculars, and I noticed that, like, early in the game, Matthew walked over and talked to you. And what kind of talk is that? Like, is he almost mentoring in some ways?
I'm sure. Just
it looks like that from far
yeah,
away.
I'm sure I probably asked a question or something and he answered it or something like that. We're talking about a look that Jimmy was getting or something like that. Yeah.
But how much are you learning on the sideline? Because this is all learning experience.
Yeah,
everything is
right. Correct. Yeah. Just watching Jimmy, watching Matthew. Just the whole season. I think you're exactly right. Just learning the whole time, trying to ask smart questions, trying to shut up whenever it's my time to shut up.
Right.
But yeah.
What kind of confidence is in this room right now? Because, look, you won 5 straight with starters, and all your guys are saying the same thing. Nobody wants to play us.
Yeah.
Is that the feel?
I think the feel is that we keep getting better each week, and I think that, that's the goal. And, we're excited for next week when, real fun starts.
What's the mindset for you? Your Bulldogs didn't quite do it.
I know, that stinks.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, how tough was that to watch? Because that's not typical of the turnovers, right? Did you see much of the game?
So it was. They changed it, and so I saw the second half.
Oh, okay.
Because we had practice.
Got it.
But yeah, saw the second half. I thought. I don't know. We were fighting. Notre Dame. They had a quarterback who was running, and they were tough to stop.
Yeah.
The turnover right before the half, and then they return kick. I mean, it's tough. You got to win that middle 8. That's tough.
It's just the way it goes, right?
That's the way it goes.
Nobody said it was easy.
That's right. It's not.
Good to see you, sir.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Happy New Year. There you go. So there's just a little feel for something different there, wandering through the locker room and saying, "Okay, let's get Stetson before his real season ends, because we'll never see him. Maybe he'll be dressed on the sideline, whatever." Anyway, thoughts on this game, guys? Kevin O'Connell, by the way, coming back playing against his old mentor in Sean McVay too.
Isn't it nice to be in a locker room where everybody's happy?
Yeah, and that was after a loss.
Yeah, it's crazy. I have 2 questions for Cris.
Okay, go.
First, what do you think Aaron Jones is going to do at a less than 100% Aaron Jones? How important is he against the Rams' run D? And then second, we've talked a lot about Sam Darnold, but we need to talk about Matthew Stafford, because there are sometimes turnover-worthy throws from Matthew Stafford as well. So talk about Jones and talk about Stafford.
Well, I think the Rams can put some serious pressure on him. So, that's the big major concern. So if you can't run the ball and you're, in the backfield immediately all the time, you're going to be looking at the same thing you saw last week against Detroit. And as far as Stafford goes, he had some inconsistencies this season. He had some games that were spectacular. But then he would have these other games where he looked pretty average, kind of looked a little aged, so to speak. So,
but isn't that sort of him anyway?
yeah, he always was kind of like that with the Lions too, where and it's him more so than other like top tier quarterbacks. It
Right,
seemed like
exactly.
he had peaks and valleys, but
and his peaks are incredibly high, though.
Yeah, I remember one game in particular this year. It was just ridiculous. Lights out. Yeah. But the first time these teams played was Thursday night. The Rams were already at home. Minnesota had to come in from out of town. Short week, and sure they announced Puka, might be in, but he ended up being an integral part of the game.
Yeah.
He did damage, and Flores admitted afterward, we didn't prep for him, and so that was a big problem. So
good point.
They will be ready for him now, and it's really going to come down to, I think the key matchup here is the offensive line of Minnesota. I mean,
totally agree.
Do you see anything more important than that, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, those are great points because I think we know what the Rams are going to do. They're going to run K.Williams 20 or more times. They're going to throw to their top 2 targets. They're going to maybe incorporate Higbee, who's back and got some work. He was the only guy who dressed last week, which was a smart move.
Right.
But we don't know what Minnesota is going to do. We don't know if Aaron Jones is 100% healthy or if they were saving him for this game, which I can't believe they would because they wanted to beat Detroit so well. Last time Minnesota played the Rams, they were off Detroit, a tough game. And then they had to go to LA, like you said, on a Thursday. Same situation now. They're going to LA after playing Detroit in the final game of the year. It's kind of ironic that way. And I think Minnesota has to play better than they did. Flores has a chance to confuse Stafford, but he didn't confuse him first time around. So Stafford has that confidence. This is really about Justin Jefferson maybe going for 150 and going off on this game and the best player winning the game, because I think Minnesota needs to step up in this game.
Yeah, and I think I used the term under the radar a few times, and that was partially for Cris, because every week he thinks the Rams are going to fall apart, and they don't. Right, Cris? I mean, that's been sort of the season.
Yeah, they've cost me a few dollars.
I'm not even, well.
I happened to win the division at almost 4-1. I mean,
did that make up the difference? I hope.
No, but
it doesn't hurt.
Right, exactly. Anyway, bottom line is the line fair?
Minnesota's only losses this year against Detroit and the Rams.
Yeah. So is the line the way you would make it?
No.
Okay. What do you make it?
These are dead even teams according to my power ratings. So if they played on neutral ground, the game would be pick 'em.
Okay.
And so Minnesota opened 2.5.
Right.
And there were things to be done right then. And the line has, as most of us would have expected, adjusted itself.
Right.
And the issue that's happening on this one is they might move this game to Arizona, and that creates a betting nightmare because different books have different rules.
Yeah.
And some books are strict and they cancel all the bets, and they and books like Circa, they don't care if it's been relocated as long as the games have been played within 8 days. Right. Your bets stand. And other books have that same policy. So and some books are kind of in between. So I feel like I'm in teaser prison because I have all these teasers going into that game. But fortunately, I've got all 3 teamers, so none of them would get canceled technically. But the line on the game is going to change. If it goes to Arizona, the Minnesota will be -2, -2.5.
No question about that. My bet would be, I'm pretty sure my straight bets would be voided in that particular case. In the Georgia game that they changed, the Georgia Notre Dame, I had 3 bets on Notre Dame, and I had to rebet 2 of them.
Huh.
That's slightly worse numbers because they voided it because the game was played 24 hours later. So every book has different rules. And if you don't check, you're in trouble.
So was there anything on the move to Arizona today that I didn't hear about, or is that just still talk from before?
I'm paying very close attention to any sort of news whatsoever. And the only thing it feels like is that we're not going to hear anything quickly, because it seems like they have till Saturday on this decision.
Right. And Saturday's when we're going to really get a feel for, okay, is this all under control? If the winds get really bad, it's going to screw up everything. So, I mean, there's no way we're going to know until that happens. And Bernie, I don't know what to tell you. No, my book is not on Amazon Canada, and it pisses me off, by the way, because Wayne Gretzky endorsed the damn book, and I can't get it into Amazon Canada. We'll have to talk about that another time. I'm sorry.
You can't trust them hosers, eh?
What can I say?
I don't know, how much more you want to do, because we've gone an hour, but I have kind of a closing thought.
Yeah, please.
That you guys can answer. If you're Detroit and if you're Kansas City, you're going to play one of three opponents, either the 5, 6, or 7 seed. If you're Detroit, start out there. Which is a team you don't want to see?
Huh.
I'm not looking forward to any of them, frankly.
Well, I just think that the NFC is so wide open that I don't even have a straight answer until these games are over, to be honest with, because really it's week to week in the NFC. There's no major standout outside. If Detroit's defense was solid and healthy, like week 1, then that's a whole different ballgame. But now it just opens everything up.
So I'll put one out there. If Detroit ends up playing Washington, I think that would be their absolute ideal matchup.
Okay. Well, who they want to play, right? Not want to play.
Well, I mean, I went both ways, and I flipped it on you guys. You didn't give me what about Kansas City in the 5, 6, 7 range? 5 would be...
well, I would say Denver. Who they'd want to play?
Yeah,
I think
who would they want to play?
I think they'd want to play Houston.
I would agree with that too.
Okay.
Denver and the Chargers have played them twice. It's the same kind of like Pittsburgh, Baltimore kind of thing where them. You don't have to prepare
you don't want that
as much
familiarity.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's a good
point.
So
I think it would be Houston as well.
That's a very good point.
It's just something as they're sitting at home. What are they thinking of? And then we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah, and a nice, healthy group there of Kansas City Chiefs. This is just beautiful. 2-week bye.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Well, 3 weeks. Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed the sound. I hustled my ass all over that damn locker room for you, and we got something. And hopefully they play it here in LA this week, so I can get you whatever from the winning team.
From the winning team, sounds good.
All right. All right.
Good
guys,
luck, everybody.
Cheers.
Enjoy. Thank you.